is now a good time to invest? Simple question. Is now a good time to invest? And no buts. And yeah, if you do this, then you will get that. I need a clear answer because I have to give a very clear answer. What is the view? Is India ready for global investors? I have an answer which I'll give, but I want to hear your answer.
No, I think it's not a good, it's a great time to invest in India. Three key simple reasons. Firstly, the narrative is with India today. We are still a very poor country. Our GDP per capita is only $2,500. And the opportunity landscape, we all know. There is additional push coming in from the globe in terms of reorientation of supply chains. So that is one big push. Plus, there is a lot of internal push that is coming through from government reforms. This is the first time in our 77-year-old history that we are having roughly 15 years of continuous reforms. We had biggest reforms in our country way back in 1991. I'm talking about economic reforms. From 1991 to 1996 was the period where India de-licensed industry. Earlier, there were licensing requirements for any manufacturing setup to come in. So business was largely government controlled. So that was a period of 5 years of intense reforms. After that, we've largely seen reforms in buckets of 2 to 4 years. We've never as a country had 15 years of continuous reforms. So I think both an external push and an internal push, that is very good. Secondly, it is just not the narrative. The numbers are also with India. Over the last 4-5 years, the market's earnings have, kind of more than doubled, right? And for the next few years also, we are looking at a 14 to 15% kind of an earnings growth. So if we look at large markets, there aren't many large economies globally that would be having a solid double-digit domestic-oriented earnings growth, over the next few years. The third thing is, now what we are seeing is that domestic capital is supporting domestic growth. Earlier, most Indians, and still they do, used to invest more in bank deposits, gold, real estate. One could say relatively lesser productive assets. Now the channelization of savings is more towards capacity creation in the country, which is, let's say, in equities. So domestic capital supporting domestic growth is again a great story. So yes, so that's the reason for my view.
Lovely. Chetan, in agreement?
Completely in agreement. I think one thing which clearly stands out about this country is the entrepreneurial zeal. So when we look at this country and when we go out, look at the other countries as well, one clear differentiator is the entrepreneurial zeal that the population at large has. I think clearly I recall when COVID lockdowns were in place, we could see how quickly businessmen changed their businesses in a scenario where there was a lockdown. A corporation would be extremely difficult for them to switch this easily, but I think the underlying entrepreneurial zeal is what stands out. Marry that with what Sandip said, the structural reforms that we've seen, and things such as making access very easy, so something like a unified payment ecosystem, the interface that has come here. It's a leapfrog when we compare it globally as well, looking at the rate at which transactions are happening digitally, people who are involved in the transaction, so your fruit seller, vegetable seller, all these guys, we saw them adapt this technology as rapidly as over a course of a year, year and a half. And not just in the metros, when we go to hinterlands, you can clearly see people are sitting there with UPI codes. So someone selling a coconut also has a UPI code for you to pay a minimum of 50 pence or 50 cents. That is the amount for which people are transacting. So that is getting a lot more people into the formalized ecosystem. Marry that with what the government is trying to do as well in terms of easing the way the businesses are run, removing a lot of hindrances or red tape that was there. I think clearly this is a time to be in India because you will see both aspirations getting married to the capacity that is getting built in, plus the fact that it's a large consumption market. So I think that clearly supports what India can deliver over a longer term because a large part of that gets internally consumed.
Anupriya, yeah? Like to add sure, go ahead.
So not only on these consumption front and everything, but the government is coming up with a structural reform even in the sustainability area. We have seen waste management regulations coming in for e-waste, tires, where companies, producers are liable to collect the production that they are doing and then recycle it. There is also a phased approach of using those waste into the inputs that you're using. So all these regulations are coming up. On the national, we have national hydrogen policy to commercialize green hydrogen. On the, let's say, transportation front, the government has schemes and incentives to promote electric mobility and building the infrastructure around charging stations and so on. So not only on that front, the disclosure front, now top 1,000 listed entities are required to disclose around 60 ESG KPIs, which is mandatory for them to. 5 years ago, only top players used to do that. Now top 1,000 companies are required to do that. What it does, it also increases the transparency, accountability within the businesses to integrate these ESG factors into the business decision making. So, nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that the golden decade that is coming in India, or decades that is coming in India, is also going to be a sustainable one, keeping environmental and people at center as well. So that is another, I think, structural reform that is taking place in India.
Sumit, in agreement?
I don't think any one of us here would disagree. But see, when was in the past when we had all the balance sheets in right shape, whether it is balance sheet of consumer, balance sheet of government, balance sheet of banks, balance sheet of corporates, right? Everything is in fine fettle today. So balance sheet is all right with all the steps that have been taken by government at large, with the entrepreneurial zeal that's there. I believe P&L also has got better and will continue to get better. Right? So we are at a point where our P&L is moving in right direction, our balance sheet is solid, our capital efficiency is improving. Right? We may keep talking about valuation, but the longevity of, or rather the certainty of this growth that India provides, how many countries in the world can provide this kind of certainty, this kind of stability, right? We have stability at fiscal front, we have stability at monetary front. Our external situation is also a lot better as compared to what it was at any time in the past, right? So clearly, lots going right for the country at the current point in time.